Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having invited me over. It's a beautiful Sunday evening, and when Ishwar requested me to come, I was more than happy to do it. So thank you very much. Before we get into the session today, there's a tiny quiz that I would like to put forth. So I don't know if you have heard me doing this. I've done it elsewhere in a couple of other Toastmaster meetings as well. So let's imagine that there is this lady who has frequented on television, who has hosted the prime ministers across the world, and who was also invited to be a part of the United Nations ceremony. Okay, so imagine this lady, let me repeat, who has frequented on television, who has hosted the prime ministers across the world, and who was invited to be a part of the United Nations ceremony, a celebrity known across the country and many people across the world. I want you to picturize this lady and tell me, how do you think her attire would be? What kind of clothes would she be dressed in? Anyone?
Blazer.
Blazer. Okay, what color blazer?
Black. White. Black.
Black. Okay, then what else?
A blue suit.
A blue suit. Okay, a suit as in a blazer and trouser, or a blazer and skirt?
A blazer and skirt.
Okay. Others, come on.
Maybe a cotton saree.
Okay, what color?
Mild shade, like golden color.
All right, pastel shades, mild shades. Fine. Then what else? Can I hear it from the TMOD?
Yeah, I said it as black blazers.
Black blazer. Okay, great. So how many for blazer? Can you just give me a show of hands? 1, 2, 3, 4. Interesting. 5. How about our president, Toastmaster Gurupuran? What do you think? You said black, white or black, right?
Black coat. Yes.
Okay. 1 sari. What else? Let your imagination free flow. Anything else? Okay, so we'll keep this image in our minds. Now, I want you to picturize another scenario. Okay, imagine a lady who's got salt and pepper hair, mostly salt, okay, salt and pepper hair. I'll come to it, Toastmaster Gandhi, I will reveal, okay. Imagine a lady with salt and pepper hair. She's got this bright red and diamond studded nose ring. And she's got this beautiful big red bindi on her forehead. She's wearing her 9-yard sari. And she's stringing flowers. She's sitting on the floor and she's stringing jasmine flowers. So is there anyone who comes close to this picture? When I describe this lady, who comes to your mind? Could be anyone, even in your personal circles, social circles, anybody. Let's say 70 plus years.
Indira Gandhi.
Indira Gandhi, really? She was stringing jasmine flowers?
No,
Okay.
no, black pepper.
Right, okay, fine. What else? And she's wearing a 9-yard sari. Go on.
Yeah, I'm reminding of my grandmother.
Who is that? Sorry.
Yeah, it's Rishi.
Okay, Rishi is reminded of his grandmother. Okay, anyone else? What if I tell you lady 1 and lady 2 are one and the same? I'm talking about Srimati M.S. Subbalakshmi. Okay? Now, the moment I said frequented on television, hosted the prime ministers of the world, was invited in United Nations, we had an image of how this person should have been. And then the moment I said salt and pepper hair, 70-year-old, You must have visualized somebody, an elderly Indian woman. But the moment I said both of them are one and the same, we're all taken by surprise. We didn't expect that. And that is exactly what we will not do in evaluation. We will not bring in our preconceived mindsets, prejudices, and bias when we evaluate. When we evaluate, we will come in with an extremely fresh state of mind. The reason being is in club meetings, we know everyone. We know the speaker, we know the style of speaking. We pretty much know even the content that the person is going to talk about. We know if the speaker is going to bring in humor, or we know whether the speaker is going to be a serious person. When it comes to evaluation, though we know all this about the speaker, it's very important to steer clear away from the image that's already been built in our minds, so that when you evaluate the speaker, we will evaluate the person only on that particular day's performance and speech. So there are three areas that I would say we can evaluate speeches. Number one is delivery. Number two is content. And number three is attitude. So when I talk about delivery, especially in the virtual world, the definition has actually changed because it brings in a lot of facets such as screen presence, etc. But when we talk about delivery, we're going to talk about number one, how the person is exhibiting good gestures and body language. Number two, what is the kind of intonation, pitch, rhythm, tone, emphasis. And number three, what is the kind of voice modulation? So all these paraphernalia come into delivery. Number two, when it comes to content, we will judge or evaluate rather how the person has structured the message, introduction, what is the body, are there statistics, are there examples, sources, conclusion, is there a story, is there a logical flow? And then number three, when it comes to how the speaker has brought in an attitude. Is the speaker confident? Is the speaker very nervous? Is the speaker having conviction? And so on. So let me give you an exercise. Okay, let's say you're taking a cycle. There are a couple of cyclists here. I'm a cyclist too, but not a very, I don't compete. I just cycle every day in the evening in my colony for about 40 minutes. That's my cycling. So let's say you're taking your cycle, you're riding along the fields, and then you see mountains. How will you describe this scenario? Anyone?
A pleasant environment.
Okay, it's a pleasant environment. What else?
Beautiful scenery.
Okay, what else?
Being relaxed.
Okay, then?
A good place to vent out our stress and stuff.
Vent out your stresses. Okay,
Yeah.
then? Anything else that you will describe? Now, let's say there is a particular speaker who comes in and says, I took my bicycle and went in for the ride, and I saw the orange hues of the sun painting a splash of saffron on the canvas of the sky. How will you evaluate this speaker? How will you categorize the speaker?
Having a good vocabulary.
Okay, what else? What will be the image that will be formed in your mind?
He has a literary touch in his speech.
Okay, he's got a literary touch, right? Now there's another speaker who's very direct, and he or she comes in and says, I took my bicycle for a ride. The road was straight and I kept riding. And all of a sudden I saw 5 coconut trees. There were 3 birds and just 1 man in front of me. How will you judge this person?
Someone who's direct and conveys facts directly.
Okay, brilliant. Now, will you prefer one over the other? Will you be able to say this speaker is better than this speaker?
You have to look at the overall content.
let's assume this is the let's assume that you have to make a judgment only on this basis.
Okay.
What will you do?
I prefer the first one.
Why?
It was imaginative, and I was able to imagine what all he was trying to say.
Okay. But
The
you're not
second
able
one-
to imagine the 5.
Second one was
components?
it was something usual, but the vocabulary made me imagine something different.
Okay, fine. So there are people who think differently. Number one, the person who went about describing these are visual people. And there are few Toastmasters who do that, who get into the scene. You'll feel like you're watching a Bharati Raja movie where there is absolute scene setting and you can actually feel everything around the scene. Or number two, you might feel someone who's watching a Prakash Raj movie where everything is direct. Okay, there's no scene setting, there is not much color, but you know, everything is direct. So it's important, like I said, without making prejudice, understand what kind of a speaker. Is this speaker someone who loves to paint, give that scene setting, and looks at speaking as a way of being an artist, literally, right? Painting the canvas with words. There are the second kind of people are extremely objective and direct. They're given a lot of facts, they're given a lot of statistics, and they're given lots of information. And believe me, even that kind of speeches can leave you with the objective. If the objective is an informational speech, that kind of speech will leave you. And number three are people who are very emotional. You must have seen, especially in contests, people become very emotional in their speeches, right? Either they have a feel-good moment or it's a life-turning moment. They bring in a lot of emotions. So look at that. You can either have people who are artists, you can have people who are very objective. Number three, you can have people who are very emotional. But the point is the person able to achieve the purpose of the speech? So Toastmasters manual says that the purpose of a speech could be, number one, either to educate, that is being informative. Number two, either to entertain, being humorous. Number three is to motivate people, right? And there are 4 or 5 varieties. Number one, is the speaker able to achieve his or her purpose? Number two, what is the kind of technique the person is using? Is the person being very objective? Is the person being emotional? Is the person being like an artist, or is the person being informational? Number three, how does the person supplement non-verbal communication through body language? When it comes to delivering speeches in the virtual world, one area I would always look at is the speaker looking into the camera? It's very difficult to look at that tiny black hole and speak. But then if you want to talk about eye connect or audience connect, you need to resist the temptation of moving your eyes into looking into the person and just focus on the black box, because there are very few speakers who can look at you straight into the eye, even in real meetings, because you feel that when the person is looking at you, the words just go in. So when it comes to delivery, apart from non-verbal communication, how much is the speaker able to look in? Number two, what is the kind of body language? We speak of stage area, right? In the real world, we say there is a stage area, put one character here, put one character there, you stand in the center, take 2 steps left, take 2 steps right. The same thing is the speaker naturally able to bring in the virtual world. So is a speaker utilizing the entire screen space? So I don't want to make it very difficult, but just to quickly summarize on the delivery part, number one, what is the objective of this speech, whether it's inspirational, informational, or whether it's for entertainment? Is the speaker able to achieve that objective? Number three, what kind of a speaker is he or she? Objective speaker, an artist, or an emotional speaker? And what is a kind of non-verbal communication? So we were talking about prejudices and bias, and I would like to narrate one particular incident where I went in for this business conference, and there were a lot of people there. There were about thousands of people, and all the speakers except one were dressed in formals, because it was a business conference which was hosted in a well-known hotel in Coimbatore. So the gentlemen were dressed in blazers, and full, I mean, blazers and suit and full hand. And the ladies were dressed in beautiful cotton saris. And these were all speakers. You could just make out they were delegates and they're going to stand on the stage and speak, except for one gentleman who came in with t-shirts, faded jeans, and that really faded, dirty sport shoes. So at first glance, nobody thought that person was a speaker. And when he was introduced as a speaker, you can imagine the kind of thoughts that would have gone in the minds of people, right? You see the first speaker with blazer, the second speaker with this crisp cotton sari, again, the third speaker with pinstriped shirt and full, nice formal trousers, the fourth speaker in a sari, and then the fifth speaker comes in with t-shirts, faded jeans, you know, those threads literally hanging down at the ankle, and then these faded shoes. I turned around out of curiosity just to see what was running in the minds of people. And I literally caught a few people saying, oh my God, this person must be someone young who doesn't understand the kind of audience. So that was the kind of expression people had. And then he started speaking. And nobody felt those 20 minutes go by, because the speech was so engrossing, really enthralling, and the kind of data and the kind of message that the speaker gave left everyone completely immersed, that they forgot they were looking at a speaker who's wearing t-shirts and jeans, and they were completely focused only on the message. Many speakers can do that to us. How do they do that? By their sheer presence and conviction. And that is what I call the third point as attitude. What is the kind of attitude the speaker is bringing? Sometimes you might find, I find this very often, not sometimes, I find this very often, the moment the person comes on stage and starts delivering the speech, somewhere the accent or the pace of words changes. They become extremely conscious. And I call this as incongruency of image. Whatever you are off screen, you should be the same on screen. And only then you would see that true, honest, genuine, authentic self of you being demonstrated. Let's say off screen, you're very shy, but then on screen, suddenly you become confident and you try bringing in that accent. It brings that tinge of artificiality, which just puts people off. So the third element is, what is the kind of attitude, what's the kind of conviction the person brings in? So I did the first one, which is delivery, the third one, which is the attitude, and the second one, which is content. When it comes to content, many people like to start with an introduction. Either they start off with a quote, which is in fad these days, and then they give you the topic. The body is 1, 2, 3 points, examples, and then conclusion. Now, from an evaluator's perspective, one tip I would generally give people is to divide the page into two. Write all the positive points on one side and write all the areas of improvement on the other side. To help you to do it better, you can actually also divide yourself to see, I'm going to analyze the person's choice of words. I'm going to analyze the person's body language. I'm going to analyze the content and structure. And I'm also going to analyze the attitude. If you know what you're going to analyze, then you can start writing points around these 4 or 5 areas. And you can also write additional points, because I say many times the objective of evaluation, apart from giving feedback, is to also let the speaker be aware of the strengths that the speaker themselves don't know about. I'm going to repeat that. One of the objectives of evaluation is to let the speaker become aware of the strengths that the speaker themselves are not aware about. How do we do that? Sometimes you would see that certain speakers are very strong either in vocabulary or the way they do eye contact. The speaker naturally has fantastic eye contact, but the speaker is not aware that it is their strength. Or the speaker has a beautiful rise and fall of the voice and intonation. The speaker is not aware about that. It comes naturally. So the additional icing that you as an evaluator can give the speaker is letting the speaker know about things that they do not know about themselves. And that is what the R counter actually does, right? You tell the speaker, these are all your filler words, and many times the speakers are not aware. Did I actually say so many times? That is what you will do. Let the speaker know about what they don't know about themselves. And the fifth one is become a more inspirational evaluator. Sometimes you're very scared of telling the speaker, hey, your grammar is not great, or hey, that's not a great speech. But think about it. When we do not tell the speaker, I'm not talking about contests, this is pure club level evaluation. Our moral responsibility as an evaluator is to help the speaker, to let the speaker know that if something is not good, it's not good. If you do not call that out, we are doing a disservice, because the speaker will not realize that their grammar or even the structure is not great. They would say, hey, the evaluator never said anything, so this is fine. Let me go and prepare my second speech, my third or my fourth speech at the same level. So a moral responsibility that we as evaluators have is to let the speaker know that if something needs to be improved, we will call it out. But how do we call it out? That's the art. The way we call out should be in such a manner that the speaker is inspired to work on it. So instead of saying your grammar was pathetic, very bad, repeat that speech, you can say you can work on your grammar, and I would want you to repeat your speech again, because I believe that with a little bit of homework, the second time you deliver the same speech, there would be a high level of improvement. Many times evaluators feel very shy, or they feel uncomfortable telling the speaker to repeat their speech. And I think it's a disservice we do. It is our responsibility. Other than mentors, evaluators have a responsibility to tell the speaker, this is your area of improvement, and these are steps by which you can improve yourself, and therefore please go and do it and come and repeat if you think the speaker has to repeat the speech. The second one in areas of improvement would be, I have noticed an area of improvement, but can I also give in a recommendation? So if you notice that the speaker has to improve on grammar, you can suggest a book to say, hey, you know what? Go pick up Word Power Made Easy by Norman Louis. That will help you. So you're not only suggesting an area of improvement, you're also going that one step above and telling the speaker, do this, therefore it will help you in improvising. That is the value add that we bring in as evaluators. So number one, letting the speaker know the strengths that they themselves are not aware about. Number two, calling out areas of improvement in a manner that the speaker is inspired or motivated to work on it. And number three, giving recommendations and solutions to guide the particular speaker in a manner that the speaker feels that you are an approachable person to evaluate the speech. So we saw about delivery, we saw about attitude, and then we saw a little bit about content. And then we saw about dividing the pages into two, one page exclusively focusing only on the positive attributes, and then the other page exclusively focusing on areas of improvement. And then number three, focusing on the areas which the speaker himself or herself does not know about. I usually quote Helen Keller and Coimbatore Toastmasters Club. These folks generally make fun of me when I say this quote, but it's very close to my heart. I say that the most beautiful things in life are those that cannot be seen or touched. They can only be felt. The most beautiful things in life are those that cannot be seen or touched. They can only be felt. And as an evaluator, what are those most beautiful feelings that we can give the speaker? Number one, you can give them the feeling of motivation. Number two, we can give them the feeling of inspiration. Number three, you can give the feeling that, yes, I did it. I actually delivered a speech. And number four, you can give them the feeling that I learned something about myself that I really did not know about. And when we are able to leave speakers with this kind of a feeling, the message that we give the speaker stays in for a longer time than just reading an evaluation. So to quickly wrap up and summarize, number one, We will clear our mind of any prejudice, bias, mindsets of the speaker that we already have and come in with a very clean slate. Number 2, we will focus on 3 areas: delivery, content, attitude. And then number 3, we will focus on the points that the speaker himself or herself is not aware about. Number 4, we would make it inspiring and motivating. And number 5, we would give recommendations and solutions to help them in their journey as a speaker. I hope I was able to add a little bit of value to your evaluation. I wish you all the very best. Thank you.